Warning: the following audiobook contains strong languages and situations that some viewers may find disturbing. This includes fighting, violence, threats, and other scenarios of that nature. Viewer discretion is advised. Chapter 5. Will my heart stop pounding? Blake sat back onto the bed, his arms held behind his leaning body. He looked at the ceiling, seemingly lost in thought. He stared deeply, the stained popcorn ceiling dragging his attention with a variety of edges. His eyes darted back and forth. The harder he focused, the more his mind seemed to drift to Kiki and how he fit into all this. He hadn't left yet. He'd sat out in the car till he felt a familiar shiver. He dropped a cigarette at the sensation and went back inside. He had doubts and needed to clear his mind with Kirsten's presence. "What's wrong?" Kirsten asked, looking down at him, petting his hair. Blake stiffened, sitting up. He looked around confused.
"I really wish you'd give me a warning when you use magic. You really scared me,"
he said, leaning in and pressing a gentle kiss to her cheek. "I'm sorry. I just thought you'd be more comfortable with your head in my lap," she replied gently.
"You're not wrong. Just tell me, please. My nerves are on edge as it is. I don't need my instincts going crazy when I'm spooked."
He calmly continued, placing his hand back onto her lap.
"So, any news about the danger?"
Kirsten shook her head. "Mm-mm. The occult doesn't know anything. They're hiding something from me," she said, setting her hand on his chest. He quickly grabs it and holds it with his own.
"That is pretty bad. Think we have a shot?"
he said, absent-mindedly rubbing his thumb over her delicate knuckles. "I'll make sure we do," she said softly. Kirsten hated lying to him about her powers. It made her feel like an actor relying on stereotypes to survive. She wouldn't stop soon, as it was the only way for her to look like an innocent victim in Blake's eyes. Someone he could see staying beside through thick and thin. As Blake laid there, he felt his mind clear as he breathed in the subtle perfume on Kirsten's dress, its caress easing his mind into a lull state of pleasure. When he sank, he knew he couldn't stay here forever. He'd go and see what he could do. If there was a monster, he'd fight it to protect Kirsten. He'd do anything to protect her. Blake sat up.
"I better be heading out,"
he stated.
"The more I stay, the more I want to just forget about it all next to you."
He began to walk out, leaving Kirsten forlorn. He slipped up his jacket, trying his best to ignore the look Kirsten was giving him as he marched out the door suddenly. He made it to his car and wiped his face with his hands, holding it completely. His breathing was shaking. He steadied himself and adjusted his mirrors.
"It's just your ex. You've seen her plenty of times. It's just that she has the ability to fold you into a pancake."
The drive there made it all of the thoughts worse. Blake gently thought to himself how best to stay strong. This was his ex, a person who got him through hard times, yet he hadn't felt the same way anymore. Ever since Kirsten, he's moved on. But a man never forgets his first, even if his was slowly becoming temperamental. The silent ride continued, the hot summer air breezing through the open window. Blake's attention peaked when he saw the master standing on the side of the road. He slammed the brakes hard, backing up and parking in the front of her. He almost missed the spot. How could he have been so stupid? She probably noticed. He got out and walked over. His hand patted his pocket. His cigarettes were safe, thank God.
"Sup, Kiki? Why'd you bring me here? In the middle of bumfuck nowhere?"
Blake said, dusting himself off. Kiki smiled in response. He never knew why she liked his attitude. But maybe men back in her home planet might have had the same personality. "Are you scared some of your monsters will come after you? You know I'd be able to protect us both, right?" She laughed. Blake rolled his eyes. She always liked to brag she could bench 10 men and an elephant. It tended to scare off any small demons outright. Who would try to fight back against that? Right, I need to stay focused. I must confess something to you. This is something you can't tell everyone yet. I had an episode. Kiki started, Blake looked up with little concern. It still surprised me how much she trusted me. She'd drop anything just to tell me what happened in her life.
You're alright, right?
I questioned, trying to pry more from the burst of information. Kiki nodded as the answer at first, because she looked away, embarrassed. Sometimes she'd get like this because she felt this all made her seem weaker. I'm not sure why. If I was locked up with only myself and 2 servants, I'd go crazy too. Kino was the nicest person you could ask for, though. She was great at giving advice, even if it was a little generic. My mind focuses on her as she spoke again. It's just, I may or may not have broken a seal. She looked away. Blake's eyes widened, staring in disbelief. He went up and gently cupped her left cheek, coaxing her to look at him again. She leaned against him and smiled softly, the smell of his musk gently lulling her into a state of calmness. She had told him of her destiny, the entire storyline outlined in short stories. She told about the creatures on the pages. One night, she even showed him a tattoo wrapped around her arm. One orb had been at the center. He looked over to notice it. Her arm had been crudely bandaged. He got his answer to the dozens of questions he had in his mind at once. She followed his gaze with her eyes and slowly let her smile shrink and fade. His panic brought her out of her relaxation.
You did what?
He exclaimed.
Kiki, this is serious. How hard were you disassociating to let that happen?
Blake roughly pulled back and started to pace.
You always told me about those rings and that page you kept flaunting. This is bad news. Can we even stand up to this thing?
He continued. Kiki's breathing began to quicken. Blake felt some guilt but couldn't push away this news like nothing. People were going to get hurt, and she didn't just tell me on the phone. She needed me alone to tell me the end of the world was coming. This isn't how friends treat each other. I know he's upset, but this isn't how it's supposed to go. Kiki began to pace as he stopped. She didn't like the uncertainty. She could fix it, and it would all be better. Blake wouldn't be mad anymore. It would all fix itself, and they could be friends. They'd spend a lot of time together like they used to. Yes, it would all be so much fun. Blake slowly stopped ranting, staring at the nervous figure of Kiki. He sighed and went to her. He knew her mind wandered in times of stress and hugged her close to his chest. She always had a tendency to talk to herself into a corner, convincing herself of outlandish things. He rocked himself slowly, causing her to slowly relax. He had to pity her sometimes. He knew it wouldn't be easy for her, having the world on your shoulders, and believing you can't have any help. That's torture. Kiki slowly began to purr, her tail gently swaying in the night sky. He really did care about her. No matter what happened, he still felt the need to help her when she was vulnerable in front of him. She looked up. I'll fix it. We just need to find a way to track her. After that, she isn't that hard to trap into her little box again. I'm sorry I did this, I really am. I just got so... Kiki began to rant. Blake put a finger to her lips. He didn't want her to go on and on and on about how she could fix everything. She needed to calm down and let people help. She didn't have to do it all by herself.
It's okay. You're going to have a stroke if you keep stressing yourself like this.
He stated before letting go. Kiki fiended for his touch, longing for his arms to wrap around her again. Kiki nodded before holding out an orb as an offering. Meet me here in 5 hours. We're going to track her down, so be prepared, she stated before disappearing before his very eyes. Wiping his forehead, Blake really didn't like being left in this congested heat. Why couldn't she have just taken him home? Thoughts of mild annoyance danced in his head before he made it to his car and blasted the air conditioning. He could practically feel the mosquitoes darting to his location. The worst part about this spot was just the humidity. He tapped the orb, causing a flat image to project from it. He gently flicked his finger, causing the image to scroll down, revealing text. He squinted and thought to himself. The list of directions and instructions explaining all the alien text into English with one press.
How is it that you have this technology, but you'd still get distracted by a ball of yarn?
He chuckled to himself.
The more human you think you are, the more cat-like you become.
The words item list came into view and he pauses.
Well, This might be helpful. Thanks for always looking out for me.
He stated, scrolling to see fragment you stole. He smirked.
Clever girl. Nothing ever really gets past you now, does it?
She hadn't forgotten to ask for the glowing thing in the trunk. She just wanted to grab it at a better time. From the look of the map, we were all going to have a meeting at our house about it all. She'd get mad if he was late to the thing. He'd have to bring along Kirsten to talk about defeating the new evil. She's a great help in this all. Being a strong witch and all. Kiki wouldn't like that, but she'd just have to suck it up if she wanted him there. Kirsten and Kiki had a rivalry before I was in the picture, if you call a few years a lot of time. I refuse to, because it makes me feel really old. I wasn't that young, 16-year-old hunter anymore. I was pushing 27, and at this point, my best years might be behind me. Blake began to drive, trying not to think about it too much. He tossed the orb, causing it to go dormant again. The bright white now replaced by the soft reflecting light of the sun, its rays cooled by the cruel moon. He looked around himself before he began to speed. It's not like any cops would hide on this wreck of a road. The rocks being shoved ruthlessly under the wheels of the car. He loved hearing the loud growls and purrs of his engine. He didn't care if it made him sound pretentious. He was allowed one nice thing in his life. That was it. His car and his girl. He lied. He'd selfishly pick these two no matter what the cost. With his thoughts peering in again, he thought about how they talked. Did she comprehend his feelings? She didn't overstep, but she did keep her playful attitude around him. It didn't seem right. My left hand tapped on the steering wheel as the right rubs my chin with my stubble. I really needed a shave. When we save the world, I better get one of those nice razors. I'd probably settle for a cheap one, with a nice aftershave, though. I know Kirsten would love that. She always says my cologne smells nice. It makes me feel special when she notices little things. He smiles as the way she looked at him came into focus, like he hung the moon and roped the stars for her. On these car rides back, I only seemed to think about her. How lucky I was to be in her presence. I wasn't the nicest at all to her. I know she's forgiven me, but that was all out of line. It wasn't fair at all how I labeled her a goth reject. One who harms others for their own selfish needs. I rolled my eyes as I slowed down the car so I wouldn't get the speeding ticket. I basically memorized where all the cops like to hide. I'm not sure if that's sad or even more sad. I'm used to moving across the country, staying in different motels every night. Once the accident happened, everything slowed down. It wasn't right, but I knew I couldn't function as fast anymore. My reflexes slowed, and I couldn't afford to sleep 2 hours every night anymore. My body was starting to reject this lifestyle. I can't say I'm upset. It's the closest thing I've gotten to a normal life. I was never one for a white picket fence living. For one, it's a dead dream from people 100 years ago. 2, it's not for me. I'm not worthy of being happy with a woman and 2 kids. The more this injury hurts me, though, I feel my life is pulling me into that direction. I feel like I'm not fighting against it anymore. If that's my fate, I'd gladly raise the 2 greatest boys in the world. I don't fight the smirk coming to my lips as I turn into the parking lot and stop in my usual spot in the back, near the worn, towering vacant sign. I look ahead at the decrepit shell of the pastel motel, and I think, this would be a terrible place to raise kids. Maybe we can move back to Kirsten's cabin. I claim out as the dread of having to learn a new language. Why would I even need to learn German? Kirsten knows what I mean when I talk to her. It's not like we'd go to the market often. Even then, I'm sure a lot of people know English there. Why am I so caught up in this right now? I could use those cheap translation websites and fake it till I make it. I rummaged through my pockets clumsily. That keycard always found a way to warp away from my reach. I hope my kids aren't this out of control. I don't think I could keep up with their hyperactive selves. I cleared my head as I inserted the keycard. No matter what happens, it'll be perfect. Welcome back, guys. Well, I mean, you know what I mean. This is a multi-chapter story. Like I promised, Chapter 5 was posted soon after, though there are 3 extra chapters that I am sorry to say are too far down the line for me to post soon, though I am bringing them up. I don't want to be mean. I do just want to drum up hype for you. That everything is completed. It just needs to be put together. And, well, the only one who I trust to put everything together is Zimbabwe, our amazing, amazing audio editor. All the visuals are made by me, which means, but though this is a work of passion, so it will be completed, I promise you. Altogether, though, we only have a few more parts together. After this chapter, there will only be 10 more before our story is concluded. I hope you all can wait until then. I'm sorry that the original few chapters were liars. I did completely intend to have a weekly occurrence of these chapters, but it just didn't end up that way. A lot of things got in the way. School, life, and, well, anyway, I would like to thank, again, Succjuana for voicing Blake for this chapter, and there are many other talented voice actors that you haven't seen yet, but will be seen soon. And, well, to drum up more hype, I am also creating a few other things. One thing I might let slip is I am currently working on fully rendered pictures for every one of these characters. They will be in digital art, they won't be in charcoal, but I will be uploading some charcoal pieces too, to give some more content. Most of this will be on Twitter, but I do plan on branching out on other platforms so I can grow my audience, and we can all grow into a bigger mix. Anyway, again, I am bad at ending these end cards out, so tweet me if you need me. I am signing out.